to have the right tools. All right, let's see. Gotta get the canoe, Lexi, and a video camera. There it is. Can't hit the road without video to go. All right.
Molly, excuse me, dear, for not bringing you, but I wanted to surprise you. Well, where in the world are you? Oh, on the road again, I bet, just like your old mother Mayville. Well, I'll try to get you on Lexi.
Oh, I better check to make sure these batteries took a charge. Oh, I bet that's Mom. Wonder where she is this time. Hi, Mom. Up, let me guess. You're all the way across the world in the most populated country on Earth, right?
Your powers of observation are ever sharp, Molly, dear. I'm in China, and I love it. Today, I'm headed for Beijing, and then I'm going overland to Shanghai. After that, I'll fly across the China Sea to the island nation of Japan. And where on earth are you headed, pray tell? Someplace far away?
Well, far away in Kentucky, anyway. I'm headed all the way over to the western side of the state. And I'm going to drive all the way across from the Mississippi River in the west to the Black Mountain in the east. Should take me a couple of 3 days, but don't worry. I put my schedule in Lexi's main brain, and I should be back here at the home office by Friday.
Still working on that book, I see. Well, I do wish you'd finish it so you could join me for some real traveling.
I'm almost finished. And when I am, I'll let you expand my global horizons, all right? But right now, Kentucky's where I want to be. It's a big place, and there's a lot to still document before my research is complete.
Oh, I know. The good Dr. Mather has to tend to her scholarly work. Well, good luck with your travels, dear. Let's talk again at the end of the week. Toodaloo!
Thanks for calling. Be careful now, Mom. Bye. Love you. Oh, my dear globe-trotting mother. All right, let's check those batteries. Yep, we got power.
Diggity! Free eats!
What in the world?
Nothing like striped sunflower seeds for breakfast. Hey! No pictures! Go on! Cut it out! Would you like a profile or a full frontal shot? I mean to sing something like the Rockin' Robin Well, how about my ninja routine? Okay, that's enough. Knock it off! You're invading my privacy. This isn't Candid Camera, you know. Gee.
Yeah, and this isn't Looney Tunes either. How come you can talk like people talk? I mean, you're a bird. You're supposed to go like chirp or tweet or maybe...
Yeah, well, I can speak chirp and tweet and listen to the mockingbird and people language, too. I guess I'm just multilingual.
But you're a bird. You're a cardinal. Cardinalis cardinalis in scientific terms. You range over the eastern half of the United States. You're supposed to sing, not talk. You don't have the intelligence to...
Go ahead, insult me. What you don't understand, lady, is that birds are a higher species than humans. I don't want to rub it in, but have you ever seen a human do this?
Well, can't say that I have. But look, if you're so smart and you can fly too, then maybe you ought to be working on the next Kentucky Atlas instead of me.
Yep, that's right. I probably should be. What's a Kentucky Atlas? What's all this about Kentucky? I mean, what's Kentucky?
Well, our half-cocked little cardinal has some gaps in his education. Look, well, at least you've come to the right place. My name's Molly, and I'm a map maker. Now come over here and let me introduce you to the state of Kentucky.
This is going to be like school, because if it is, you can forget it. Schools are for fish.
For goodness sakes, you're our official state bird. It's time you learned something about this place you represent. It's your responsibility, Mr. Cardinalis. You owe it to the 3.5 million Kentuckians who are depending on you.
Wow. Man, if you put it that way. But tell me this. Why do they call this place Kentucky?
It comes from the Native American tribes who were here long before you and I were. The Wyandots called it Katintate. The Iroquois called it Kentucky, and when the English settlers came, they pronounced it Kentuck. Of course, they later changed it to Kentucky. Now, this is a map of Kentucky, the 15th state admitted to the Union of the United States of America, and that was over 200 years ago. Now, we use maps to know where we are and to find our way from one place to another. We're here, near Frankfort, the state's capital. And this morning, I am headed all the way over there. Of course, you winged creatures, excuse me, I mean you higher species, don't need maps, right? Because you fly as the crow flies, so to speak.
Crows! Please! I don't flock with crows. They're too loud and rowdy.
That's right, birds of a feather, huh?
Yep, you got it, yeah. Say, how come Kentucky is such a funny shape, huh?
Good question, Ricky. Here, let me show you. Now, that's because Kentucky is bordered on 3 sides by rivers. The Big Sandy River in the east, the Ohio River in the north, and the mighty Mississippi, the father of all rivers, in the west. Now, rivers meander or take winding paths because they seek out the easiest routes through the landscape as they wander down to the sea. See?
Yeah, but one of those lines running back and forth across Kentucky, are they strings stretched all around us like some crazy spider web? Well, it kind of gives me the creeps.
Those are highways. If you think that's bad, take a look at this. Let me show you. Those are just the main roads. Add the back roads to the map and the web gets thicker.
Yikes!
The map gets even more complicated when you add in the railroad lines. The airline routes. Ha, this will keep you from getting creamed by a low-flying 747. Now, let's throw in the power grid, the electrical transmission lines, and the microwave communication system.
It's suddenly hard to breathe. We're going to be strangled by the web.
Relax, Birdman. Just think of it as a kind of a tapestry with many threads woven together to form the fabric of society. Besides, Kentucky's a big place with plenty of room for you to flap around in. Take a look at this. Kentucky is about 350 miles long from east to west. That's 5 or 6 hours of driving in the Mollymobile. Of course, it would take you a day or two of flapping your tail feathers off. Now, let me put it another way. If you could put cars end to end, it would take about 123,000 of them to stretch across the length of Kentucky. At its widest point, the state is about 175 miles wide. That's about a 3-hour drive or almost 62,000 cars lined up bumper to bumper. Now, you see that little square? That's approximately 1 square mile around the state capitol in Frankfort. Seems small when you look at it on this big picture, but it's actually about the size of 620 football fields. plenty of room for your aerial aerobics. Now let's see, if we have over 40,000 square miles of land in the whole state, that means we could put some 25 million football fields within our borders, huh? Yeah, but who wants to live on a football field, right?
Not me. No trees.
Then let's look at it this way. We could fit more than 32,000 farms the size of this 800-acre showplace in the state. Now, of course, not all of Kentucky's 25 million acres is as well manicured as this, but I tell you what, it's all beautiful to me. As far as I'm concerned, this state is one of the most unique places in the world. Our landscape ranges from a lowland swamp in far western Kentucky, where we can see how the state looked long, long ago, to the rugged Appalachian Mountains in the east. Centuries ago, these ridges were thrust thousands of feet above sea level.
Wait a minute. You say Kentucky is one of the most unique and beautiful places in the world, right? Well, where in the world is Kentucky?
Just keep your eyes on Kentucky and notice how it stands in relation to the rest of the world. Ready? Then let's blast off. First of all, watch where Kentucky is relative to the states that surround it. Clockwise from the top, we have Ohio, West Virginia, and Virginia to the east, Tennessee to the south, Missouri and Illinois to the west, and Indiana joins Ohio along our northern border. That's all part of our relative location.
Yeah, I think I have some relatives in those states. Oh, my cousin Red, Oh, never mind.
Ha! Yeah, I bet you do. Now, if we go farther up in the atmosphere, we can see where Kentucky stands relative to the rest of the U.S. Let's stop the tape there for a bit. There is the whole of the U.S. except for Hawaii and Alaska.
Hey, where'd Kentucky go? What happened to the lines?
This is what the U.S. really looks like from space.
Whoa! Hey, where'd we go?
There we are, in the eastern half of the country, not really north or south, but sort of in the middle. Before we fly any higher, notice Kentucky's relative size. It's a lot bigger than some states like Massachusetts or New Jersey. But it's a lot smaller than some other states like Texas or California. And look how Kentucky compares with Alaska.
Wow! Alaska's huge!
Now, let's go farther out into the great beyond.
We're getting smaller and smaller. Oh, it's making me feel a little funny in the stomach.
You better hang on. We're going farther out. Those are the planets nearest us, Mars, Venus, and Mercury. And there goes the sun. We're leaving the solar system behind and going out into the unknown.
Stop! That's far enough for me. Phew. I was getting a little worried. I guess I never realized how big everything is. And how small I am.
Look, let me show you one more thing about location, and then I better hit the road. Now, we know where Kentucky is located relative to the surrounding states, relative to the rest of the U.S., and relative to the rest of the world. That's called relative location, where one place is in relation to other places. But there's also a way to determine your exact position on the face of the globe. It's called absolute location. It's based on a system of lines that divide up the Earth from east to west and from north to south. The horizontal lines are called latitudes, and the vertical lines are known as longitudes. Take Frankfurt, for instance. Now, if we really want to pin it down, Frankfurt is 38 degrees and 10 minutes north latitude and 84 degrees 52 minutes west longitude. With those figures, a compass, and a device called a sextant, you can get your bearings from the stars and find your way back to Frankfurt from anywhere in the world.
I'd have to carry a backpack. No, thanks. I think I'll just, wing it.
Speaking of winging it, I better get on with my GeoQuest. Hey, you want to come along for the ride? I could give you a quick tour of the 6 regions of Kentucky, and you could see how the lay of the land influences what people do to make a living in different parts of the state.
Yeah, I'm going to GeoQuest with you. I need to learn more about Kentucky, because I'm a state bird, after all. But first, I better pack for the road.
Ricky. Hey, Ricky, we're home. Hey, where'd you go? No fair hiding. Hey, come on out. Tell me what you think of my humble home office. Ricky.
Yoo-hoo, 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 Molly dear.
Well, if it isn't my Fujiyama mama.
That's right. I'm at Mount Fuji and I'm headed for Tokyo. Who's that behind you?
Oh, this is Ricky. He's my new assistant. He is smarter than your average bird.
Hey, I think I just got promoted. Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Maybell.
How'd you do? You may call me Mom. Well, he's a cute little thing, isn't he? And he'll provide you with a bird's eye view of things.
Well, that's true. He went with me on my cross-state trip, and he was a big help. We were just about to review this data we collected.
Well, I'll let you go then. I've got to get a move on, too. After Tokyo, I'm going to Bali in Indonesia. Good luck, Ricky. Love you, Molly. Toodaloo.
Toodaloo. Hey, she was pretty cool. She didn't freak when I started talking.
Oh, well, I'm not surprised. She talks to plants and birds and trees and everything. Besides, I brought home stranger friends than you, bird. All right, let's get started here. We'll go through these regions from west to east, take a look at these notes, and see how the video looks. We'll begin in the Jackson Purchase region on the banks of the mighty Mississippi River in Fulton County. It's the lowest elevation in the state at approximately 240 feet above sea level.
I learned that it's the newest area of Kentucky, and it's named for President Andrew Jackson, who, along with Kentucky's first governor, Isaac Shelby, bought the whole area from the Chickasaw Indians in 1818.
Hal, what did you think about the swamp known as Murphy's Pond? Millions of years ago, a lot of Kentucky was covered with swamps like this. You didn't believe me when I told you the trees breathe through their knees.
So now I know cypress trees have knees, or roots that come up out of the water.
Now, since this region is flat and has fertile soil, a lot of people who live in it farm for a living. They raise a variety of crops and livestock, and it's the only place in Kentucky where cotton is grown. Paducah is the big city of the region. The fact that it's a river port and an important railroad hub makes it a center for commerce and industry. The next region that we cruised was the Western Kentucky coal field. Now, you know, coal is one of Kentucky's most important natural resources, and this region produces half of the state's coal. You know, when you consider that Kentucky is one of the nation's top coal-producing states, you see why these coal fields are vital to the state's economy. And unlike the eastern Kentucky coal fields, these are relatively flat, so that makes it easier to get the coal out.
But as we saw, when coal companies mine the coal, they have to tear up the land to do it. So they're required by law to reclaim the land. If they strip mine it, they have to restore it. Now, the major cities in the region are Madisonville, Henderson, and Owensboro. Owensboro is the largest. It's one of Kentucky's big manufacturing centers.
Yeah, that's right. After gorging myself on some of Owensboro's famous barbecue, we hightailed it over to Henderson, where we visited the John James Audubon Museum.
Audubon was a famous artist and naturalist. He was born in the French West Indies, but he lived near Henderson in the early 1800s, painting the many migratory birds that visit the area, as well as birds that live there year-round. Here's one of my relatives, see? This is my kind of guy.
Ha-ha! On to the Pennyrile we went. Now, this is the biggest of Kentucky's 6 regions. Major cities and towns in this region are Bowling Green, Elizabethtown, Somerset, Glasgow, and Hopkinsville. And the region is named for a small blue flower, the pennyroyal, that in old days was made into tea and served as a cold remedy. And not only is it Kentucky's largest region, it has the best farmland in the whole state. People here raise about any plant or animal you can think of.
Oh, even my favorite, delicious sunflower seeds. Oh.
That's right. And like its soil, the Pennyrile's history is rich, too. It's kind of ironic, you know, that the opposing presidents in the Civil War were both born in Kentucky, about 100 miles apart. Jefferson Davis was born in Fairview in Todd County, and Abraham Lincoln was born near Hodgenville in LaRue County.
Yeah, and in between those historic sites, we saw one of the natural wonders of Kentucky and of the whole world, Mammoth Cave. Truly awesome.
Yeah, reminds you that there's a whole nother world in Kentucky, hidden away beneath your feet.
And speaking of things beneath our feet, I was also surprised to learn that there's mineral wealth in Kentucky besides coal. Ching!
You know, it's funny to think about, but the nation's supply of gold bullion is kept right there at Fort Knox, the big army base between Louisville and Elizabethtown. During times of war, the original versions of important documents like the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution have been kept right there underneath Fort Knox.
I have two more entries in the log on this region. First, we saw the world's one and only Corvette plant in the Pennyrile, just north of Bowling Green. Ooh, can you just see me in a little red Corvette? Doo, doo, doo. Vroom, vroom.
Oh, yeah.
Next, we navigated over to the Knobs, a really neat part of the state. You know, it's the smallest region in Kentucky, but it has some of the most unusual geographic features. The Knobs are hills with different shapes depending on whether the upper layers of rock are soft or hard. The Knobs in Nelson County have softer rock on top, so they look more like upside-down ice cream cones.
Yum, yum. And the Knobs in Powell County look more like castles because they have harder rock on top, which erodes differently from the cone-shaped knobs. Now, with its wooded hillsides and gentle plains in between, the Knobs region provides people with work in timber and agriculture.
Here's another entry for the Knobs region. It provides a home to two very different enterprises, both of which require peace and quiet. Famous distilleries like Maker's Mark and Jim Beam aged their bourbon whiskeys for years in huge warehouses here.
And nearby at the Abbey of Gethsemane, devout Trappist monks passed their days in silence. The author Thomas Merton lived and worked at Gethsemane for many years until his death in 1968.
Yeah! Giddy up, pussy! Yeah! Well, let's ride on over to the Bluegrass region. The Bluegrass accounts for about 1/5 of the state's land area, but half of Kentucky's 3.8 million people live there. That's because the state's largest cities, Louisville and Lexington, are in this region.
Covington is another sizable city that technically is considered to be in the Bluegrass, even though it's right across the river from Cincinnati. Now, remember, Ricky, we learned that the Bluegrass is a plain formed by soft limestone rock that's been undermined by groundwater. And that's what causes those pretty roller coaster-like hills. That same limestone is responsible in part for the region being the center of the thoroughbred horse business. Minerals from the limestone are soaked up by the grass, and the horses eat the grass, and that makes their bones strong.
Dun, 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 dun. And the best of the thoroughbreds run for the roses every year in the Kentucky Derby at Louisville's Churchill Downs. Oh, it's the most famous horse race in the world. Wow!
Yep, they think so much of the horses around here, they built the Kentucky Horse Park right between Lexington and Georgetown. There's no other park like it anywhere.
You know, there are some interesting historic sites in the Bluegrass, like Ashland, the Lexington home of Henry Clay. Well, he was one of the greatest U.S. senators of all time, and he came close to being president.
In Bardstown, we visited my old Kentucky home, where the musician Stephen Foster visited a long time ago and was inspired to write our state song. Okay, Redbird, we've got one more region to go through, and then we can knock off for the night. Of course, I'm talking about the scenic eastern Kentucky mountains and the economically important coal fields that lie beneath them. This region represents about 1/4 of the whole state.
Wow! And talk about dramatic geography. On the western edge of the mountain region, we saw Cumberland Falls, where the Cumberland River drops 68 feet, forming a spectacular spectacular waterfall. It's the only place in the Western Hemisphere where, at certain times of the year, you can see a moonbow in the light of the full moon. Also on the edge of the Cumberland Plateau is the incredible Red River Gorge. Wow, it's the Grand Canyon of the East. The Red River carved out this masterpiece over the course of centuries. And then we ended our cross-state ramble on top of Kentucky's highest mountain, Black Mountain in Harlan County. It's 4,145 feet high. That's quite a change from that 240-foot elevation in western Kentucky.
There's a wealth of scenery and a wealth of black gold under these mountains. This region produces half of Kentucky's coal. Much of it is mined by the deep mine method, in which men and women go deep into the earth to dig the coal out. There's a lot of strip mining here too, and the steep terrain makes reclamation more difficult than in the flatter West Kentucky coal fields. Now, this is footage of mountain land that was mined years ago and never reclaimed.
According to my notes, the major industrial city in the eastern part of Kentucky is Ashland. The big refineries there contribute to the state's economy.
Historically speaking, you can't get any more significant than the Cumberland Gap, the break in the mountains where the settlers first entered what we now know as Kentucky. Well, sure, a lot of people came down the Ohio River into the state, but this is the passageway that led directly to the settlement of Kentucky. Well, that's it for our geographic tour of Kentucky. And Ricky, you did a great job. High fives.
Does that mean I get a degree in Kentucky geography?
Well, not quite. You still got a ways to go, but you're off to a really good start. Tell you what, next time we will talk about the early days in Kentucky's history.
How early?
Well, real early, like when your prehistoric cousins, the pterodactyls, were flying around.
I can dig it.
All right, then, you winged creature, you. Let's knock off for the night. Get some rest and go on with the GeoQuest tomorrow. What do you say?